Now, I know you are familiar with a special event. I think it was at Loring Air Force Base, correct?
Yes, Loring Air Force Base in northern Maine, near Limestone, Maine. It was a Strategic Air Command base, or a SAC base.
SAC base, yeah.
That contained B-52 bombers. And these B-52 bombers had nuclear weapons installed on them, and those B-52s were on alert 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. In November 1971, an event happened that threatened a nuclear weapon. In the late hours of the evening, during a snowstorm, a nuclear weapons guard, they call them Air Force Security Police, outside a nuclear weapons storage area, guarding a fence line. About 23:30 or about 11:30 p.m. at night, this security policeman saw a light coming towards his post. He watched that light get closer and closer. He first thought, well, it's an aircraft coming into Loring and going to land at the base or the flight line area. But as it got real close, he realized it was probably a helicopter. So he radioed in on his radio. The controller at the radio said, negative, we have no helicopter due in. So all of a sudden this thing lands. It lands some distance from him, and he didn't know what this thing was. He stood his post, and then immediately he saw something moving towards him. It didn't appear to be any military person in uniform. It didn't appear to be another guard, but it was something wearing a helmet. It was something that was tall, and it had a silvery suit on. And then he realized it wasn't a human, but he didn't know what it was. So the security policeman tried to transmit on his radio, but his radio didn't work.
Oh, great.
And so the next thing he's taught to do, deadly forces authorized, is start shooting. He shoots one round of his rifle at this humanoid. It stopped. The humanoid stopped. He backed up now to a post where there was a phone, a landline phone. He immediately picked up the phone and told the Central Security Control, I have an intruder, and this intruder, I shot it, but it's not stopping. And then he watched this intruder go right up to the outside perimeter fence and just walk through it as if it wasn't there. Now, a weapons storage area has two different fence lines, but this humanoid moved through both. And now this humanoid is inside a nuclear weapons storage area.
In the red zone.
Now, they know what's inside those bunkers.
That's right.
They're nuclear weapons. They're B-28s. They're 1.1 megaton nuclear weapons that are installed on the B-52s.
Yeah, the warheads, right.
They're the warheads. They see this thing moving towards the bunker doors, which are metal doors that are sealed shut. So as this thing approached this bunker, the doors immediately opened. And now the bunker's open, and this extraterrestrial has access to the interior of this nuclear weapons bunker.
What happens next?
The humanoid goes inside the bunker. The master sergeant, who was the highest ranking person among all of the people that were there, went inside. The tech sergeant, EOD man, followed him in. And as they went inside, the humanoid was standing over the weapon,
warheads,
the nuclear
right?
weapon,
Yeah,
the warhead,
right.
and had taken off the outer shell.
Oh my goodness.
Now, well, the master sergeant then realized that this thing could be detonating it or whatever, so he immediately fired on with his handgun.
38, yeah.
But he fired all 6 rounds of a 6-shot revolver into this humanoid. And other than it turning to look at the security policeman, it turned back towards the weapon, fixating directly on that warhead. And at this time, the quick alert team, or the QRT team, had arrived. And of course, they have heavy weapons.
Yes.
They have grenade launchers, and they have M60, which is a machine gun back in those days. Yeah. Now there's all this firepower there trying to stop this extraterrestrial, this humanoid, from damaging, detonating, or whatever that it's doing to this nuclear weapon. And so at some point, they decided, let's shut the door, seal it, and lock it from the outside. Now they have it trapped. Now, there's two problems with that. Number one, it's alone inside with, there's actually 4 nuclear weapons inside this bunker.
Right.
Number two, could it detonate it? What is it that's planned? So at some point later, a major came. He arrived at scene. He said, open those doors
And get this guy
and
out
get
of
this
here.
guy out of there because we can't
Absolutely.
have him inside.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as they opened the door, the humanoid was just standing right there by the door. But they could see holes from the bullets
Wow.
that they fired at it, and including one up in the helmet area. But it didn't seem like the one in the helmet area had penetrated. There was just a mark there.
Mm-hmm.
So they tried then physical restrainment, getting the biggest guys to go in and try to restrain him and put handcuffs on. Well, that didn't work. 2 of the security policemen were injured, pushed away. And then this thing started spinning. It put its arms out and started spinning. Now, at this point, later on, the analysis, the after-action reports determined that this thing probably wasn't a biological creature.
Right.
It was a robot.
Mm-hmm.
And because none of the bullets harmed him. And this is 1971. We didn't know a whole lot about extraterrestrials at the time. We knew some, but none of these security policemen were ever briefed into any of that. And so they, as it was spinning, anything that got in its way,
Right.
it would be
Knocked out.
harmed
Mhm.
or killed.
Right.
So it spun out into the open on a road, and there was 2 vehicles there, an armored vehicle. They call it an M706.
Right.
It's like a armored vehicle.
Yeah.
Well, the driver of the QRT then decided to ram
Go ahead.
the creature. So he accelerated and ran right into it, knocking it over, rolling over it. And then this thing moved all the way out to the perimeter fences, back into the UFO, which was parked out there.
Right.
As they turned around, there was 2 more humanoids going in that bunker. Now they got 3 of these things. As those 2 went into the bunker, then they had to think quick. Let's set up the M60 machine gun. They hadn't fired the M60 machine gun yet. And that's a machine gun.
That's the heaviest one we have back then.
Back then, yeah. And so they set it up outside and they fired in. Now, I know some people were probably going to say, well, you shooting at a nuclear weapon? Bullets are not going to harm a nuclear weapon.
No, not at all.
No way they're going to set that off.
Nope.
And so they were firing at these 2 humanoids that's inside the bunker. Although they disabled one, dropping it,
Wow.
it fell to the ground. And as that other one did whatever it was meant to do, or whatever the objective was, then started spinning and came out. That moved all the way out to the perimeter fences and then went back into the UFO. But they still have now one inside. They decided now, as the EOD Master Sergeant goes back to the maintenance building, they had these heavy cables. So they decided to bring some of those out to try to wrap it up.
Right.
And they did. They put a tarp over it and they wrapped it up. So now it's as secure as they could get it. And now they don't know what to do. Now, the UFO then took off. As it took off and flew northwest, the communication system came back on. Now they can talk on the radio. They then brought in a forklift, because this thing is heavy.
Right.
A forklift and a flatbed truck to put it on. And so while they were doing this, the UFO returned.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
This time, the UFO flew right over the storage area. Now it's hovering right over its occupant, the humanoid. Now they don't know what to do. So the squadron commander, who was a lieutenant colonel, ordered the machine gun guy with the M60 to start shooting at that thing.
Yeah.
And he started shooting at it. Well, it shot back.
Whoa.
It shot something back that totally disabled the M60 machine gun. So there was alert aircrafts on duty at Dow Air Force Base in Maine, in Bangor, Maine.
Right.
They sent 2 alert aircrafts down there to try to shoot this thing down, because what else are they going to do? We're in the middle of a battle between our forces and whatever is in that craft. Now, everyone that was trying to load that humanoid onto that flatbed moved back. At some point, when the aircrafts got there, and it took them like 30 minutes, the craft was going away.
It didn't take their...
Yeah, when they went out to look at the the flatbed, they noticed that that humanoid was gone.
So what about the nuclear warheads?
One of the nuclear warheads was missing. Now, this presents a major problem within the United States military. They lost a nuclear weapon. What are they going to do with a nuclear weapon? They caught up with this thing going up towards Labrador, and they fired everything they had, and they disabled this thing. But the thing made it into the Atlantic Ocean and sunk there, but it was gone. It's not there.
Right.
They would have to do some kind of recovery. But what they did find was a nuclear weapon. They jettisoned that nuclear weapon. Is this thing ready to detonate?
Armed? Yeah, right.
Now we have a major problem
Serious
inside another country in Canada. But they found that the nuclear weapon was already rendered safe, meaning it couldn't detonate. So what they figured out was this particular species of extraterrestrials went in there to disable a nuclear weapon, to teach us a lesson to say, don't use these things.
Right.
We know how to disable them, and I think that's the message that we as a government received.